Welcome to the Young Turks with Ana Kasparian and Iadarola today. We had a full rundown of lots of different stories, lots of different topics to get to, but obviously we need to dedicate this show today on the violence by right-wing gang members and extremists in the Capitol. They have rushed the Capitol building, broken into the Capitol building. We're gonna give you all the details on that story, and there are so many different angles to tackle that story from, including the lack of preparedness by police officials, also the violence that's led to one woman already dying as a result. It's already getting pretty dark in Washington, D.C., and there have already been promises of additional violence by these pro-Trump right-wing extremists and domestic terrorists in this country. And that's exactly what they should be referred to. John, before we get to all of the different angles to the story, how are you doing? We thought we were gonna have fun on the show today with the Georgia runoff election results.
Yeah, that's still lurking in the background. That's all true, and look, it's TYT and it's me and you. We're gonna at some point have some kind of fun somehow. I don't know what it's gonna look like. Probably get us in trouble, but yeah, it's been an interesting day.
It's been, I'm not someone, I've been doing this for such a long time. I'm not the kind of person who gets scared easily or shaken up easily. I wouldn't say I'm scared, but it's been a long time since I felt as disturbed as I do today. So let's just get right to it. Let's give you the details on what's happening in the nation's capital. So, Vice President Mike Pence and congressional lawmakers evacuated the Capitol building after thousands of Trump supporters violently stormed the Capitol and broke into the Capitol building several times. I want to be clear, these are not protesters. They should not be referred to as protesters. These are individuals who are armed, who refuse to accept the results of the presidential election, who want to essentially throw out our system of government and our democratic process. These are people who are willing to do so by any means necessary. So let's call them what they are, and let's stop pretending as though there's any equivalent to any other group of actual protesters who want to draw attention to legitimate concerns. These are people who do not believe in our democracy, plain and simple. John, before I go to some videos of what the scenes look like, you want to jump in?
Yeah, directly related to that. I get that people are trying to scramble to figure out in the media what terminology to use. And so I was watching a little bit of CNN earlier, and sometimes they call them domestic terrorists. It seems like they've shifted to calling them anarchists now. And let's be very clear, these are not anarchists. I understand that using it casually, you think, well, they're doing crazy stuff, they're anarchists. No, anarchists don't storm government buildings to keep a fascist in office. That's not what anarchism is. That has nothing to do with anarchy or any anarchist movement or anything like that. I understand that may seem like a small thing, but we have actual specific words that not only describe the behavior we're seeing, but also the political ideology underlying it. So why don't we use the more appropriate terms where possible?
So we have a series of videos that prove this case that we're trying to make here, that this is not a situation involving anarchists. This is not a situation involving peaceful protesters. These are people who, again, refuse to accept the fact that Joe Biden is the democratically elected president-elect. They refuse to accept that. And so they have been encouraged and egged on by Donald Trump himself. In fact, he did that today during a speech at 1 p.m. where he encouraged them to march to the Capitol. And there have been other messages encouraging violence from other lawmakers, including Louis Gohmert. And the result is what you're about to see. Take a look.
Protesters breached the barricades there. Some of them climbed up on these risers that were set up for the inauguration. And we are just waiting to see when law enforcement shows up and in what kind of numbers, because right now I can tell you they don't have the numbers here to deal with this crowd.
they don't have the numbers there to deal with that crowd. But let me remind you all that there was no shortage of law enforcement in the summertime when Black Lives Matter protesters were marching in DC, protesting in DC for a very legitimate concern, raising awareness and demanding change and reform, and defunding the police because of the brutal policing that takes place across this country. They were met with federal agents who carried out violence, whether they were journalists or protesters, it didn't matter. In this case, where you have an attempted violent coup, all of a sudden they don't have enough manpower to police something that Trump supporters have been threatening this country with for weeks now, for weeks. Okay, so look, I get it. I even personally didn't think it was gonna get this bad. I thought there would be some violence, some issue in DC today, especially because it's the day that Vice President Mike Pence is supposed to do a very ceremonial thing, which is, open the envelopes and confirm the, certified electoral votes. Again, it's a ceremonial event, and Trump supporters couldn't handle it. They can't handle the fact that their failure of a leader who has led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans during this pandemic could be elected out of office. But I got news for you. He was legitimately elected out of office. He has been a failure on a number of fronts, including with the pandemic. But John, I mean, we have so much video to get to. I'm sorry for going on and on, but yes, jump in.
Trust me, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, where to begin? Like, I'm trying so much is developing literally as we're doing this. One of the things that's been interesting to watch has been how people have communicated around this, especially Donald Trump. Did you know that he just tweeted a couple minutes ago?
No, can you tell me what it is?
These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever. So he technically tells them to go home, but after saying that what they did, storming government buildings, destroying property, assaulting cops and the guards that have been protecting him and Republican politicians, a woman's dead. So also either killing or leading to the death of a woman. He is literally justifying it as like every one of his messages has been worse than the last. This is saying this is what happens when you steal an election. Not just the election was stolen, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, do whatever you want. It's this was justified because you stole the election from me. This is after a woman was announced dead.
Yeah. And later in the show, we'll give you the details on what we know so far about that shooting within the Capitol building, by the way, that led to one woman dying. But this is what Trump is encouraging. Trump and his cronies have been encouraging this for weeks now. And we have a series of videos to share with you. Without further ado, let's take a look at what Donald Trump is signing his name on.
And I'm getting texts, as I'm sure Dan and Abby are as well, from members of Congress, Trump supporters, Biden supporters, Democrats, Republicans, who are stunned. They have been told by Capitol Police they have to shelter in place in their office. Is it because of a terrorist attack on the United States? It's because Trump supporters are violently, in some cases, forcing themselves into the United States Capitol, stopping the constitutional proceedings of the counting of the electoral votes for Joe Biden, the president-elect.
And if that scene is pretty disturbing, keep in mind that they did manage to breach into the Capitol building. We have more video for you. Let's take a look. And to give you a sense of just how utterly pathetic the security measures were. They did manage to break into the building. There were, of course, members of Congress who had to evacuate. They were also given gas masks. There's already been some digging into how this, mob was organized, and they apparently did use social media to do it. But let's take a look at what the scene was like once they did manage to break into the Capitol building.
That is happening in the U.S., never mind the U.S. Capitol. It looked like law enforcement with their arms drawn. We're actually looking at video right now of these anarchists interaction, and these people who were involved in this insurrection. They broke the glass in the United States Capitol, and now they are climbing through the window. This happened moments ago on the grounds of the United States Capitol. This is likely what you're hearing inside, and this is the reason you said that you were told to shelter in place, moved to an undisclosed location.
We heard quite a bit about vandalism and looting and anarchy and all of these, terrifying words that were used to distract from the very legitimate message coming from the civil unrest over the summer. People who wanted to call into question the insane amount of funding that goes to policing in this country, which then brutalizes very specific groups of people, communities of color, of course, Black people specifically as well. And they were met with great violence. And the media coverage was very different from what you might notice on Fox News today, for instance. So, John, before we went live today, you shared some details about what you were seeing on Fox. They love to talk about vandalism when any type of demonstration is taking place. So, did they talk about vandalism and chaos or anything like that today?
Here's the thing, they did have to talk about the chaos. I mean, look, on TV, God only knows, Tucker Carlson's gonna do something about pandas or something. But judging by the front page, they do show that there's chaos. But the thing that shocked me was, if you've been to foxnews.com, you know that there will be like 14 to 20 headlines on the front page. Pictures and tons of headlines, tons of details. And there's many that are talking about what's happening there. And if you woke up and just looked at the Fox News front page, you would have no idea who these people were, which side they were on. It's just chaos and anarchy. It's not explicit Trump fans. It's not people wielding the Confederate flag. It's not people who Trump and Don Jr. addressed this morning when he said you have to show your strength and march on the Capitol. There's nothing about that. There's literally no context. It is just random bits of information floating free, no attempt to connect them whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, of course, there's going to be a difference in how they cover these stories. And we're talking about the Capitol building, which, you saw in that last video, they broke the glass and were able to get in. And there were several times that they managed to do that after police officials were able to get them out of the building. And they proceeded to cause all sorts of damage and vandalism. I want to go to the pictures for this story, and you'll find, of course, many more in media and also on social media. But let's take a quick look at what the chamber looked like. You have a Trump supporter who managed to get to the seat of, I believe this is the Senate floor. Yeah, so that is the Senate Majority Leader's seat. Absolute. It's disturbing, embarrassing, shameful. Let's take a look at another picture where it shows an individual Trump supporter. I don't know what he's going to do with that podium, but he has a podium in his hand. For those of you listening to the podcast version of this show, he's having a great time. He's having a great time. You'll see videos of them literally just calmly roaming within the building. It's just. And again, a shooting happened within this building. A woman died as a result of these protests, and
bombs.
It was. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We'll talk about that in more detail later in the show as well. But bombs were found at the DNC and the RNC buildings. The DNC had to evacuate when they found a suspicious package, and it was later confirmed to be a pipe bomb. And we have more video showing you what the scene looked like. So let's get to the next one.
in the House chamber, according to pool reports that just came into us moments ago. The officer told lawmakers, House members, that they may need to duck under their chairs. He said that protesters, we now have, this was what the officer said. We now have individuals that have breached the Capitol building. They are in the rotunda area. Now, the rotunda is of course, the big dome that separates the House and the Senate, and inside that is just feet away from both chambers. The House lawmakers have been told to go into the cloakrooms. Those cloakrooms are where the actual members from each side gather. They meet. They have when they go off of the House floor. So they're urging them to take cover there if necessary. The proceedings on the Senate have gone into recess as well, and senators are sitting inside the chamber themselves. People are being told, stay inside, stay safe, make very little noise, don't draw attention to yourself, because they're not sure who these individuals are, what they possess, if they have any firearms, or what their intentions are at the moment as they struggle to get the situation under control.
So again, the Capitol Police were not prepared for this, which is pretty embarrassing and shocking. I mean, I don't know. Once we show you how some of the police responded to these Trump supporters, perhaps it's not so shocking. But I also want to just quickly mention that, like, the lack of response from Donald Trump, but also all of the disgusting, craven Republican lawmakers who enabled his lies, his deception, his intentional deception regarding the reality of the election, right? People who, for political purposes, for their own political aspirations, decided to sign on to this dumb, debunked narrative of widespread voter fraud. They have blood on their hands, honestly, at this point. Considering that there's already been a death, there's already been a shooting tied to this, absolute chaos and mayhem in the Capitol.
Yep. Yeah, and the grifters too. I hope the mansions are worth it. They do seem very fancy, but Dave Rubin tweeting, that it's the same thing. You storm the Capitol or you burn down a Target. Exactly the same thing. So he's not worried about it, of course. There's so many people that have helped to smooth the path to where we're at. But really, and I know there's a lot of specifics we're going to talk about. What I first felt, especially once they got into literally the halls of Congress, they're standing where the speaker stands. There's people with guns defending that chamber. It almost seems perfect. It almost seems like, oh wait, how could it end any other way than this? And literally not even that we need to storm the White House. It's literally the people's chamber being assaulted by anti-democratic forces. That it couldn't be any more perfect than that. And look, it's been 5 years basically that we've been in this hell. And we've been, covering it every step of the way. Things have been worse in a number of ways than we might have predicted in 2015 and 2016. But we knew what he was, and we knew what movement he was putting together, and we tried to warn people about it. And we have been called hysterical or hyperbolic 1,000 times at the least since then. And now they're bringing bombs to the Capitol and they're having shootouts in the halls of Congress. A woman has died. God only knows what tonight is going to bring. And so, it had to go in this direction. It had to go in this direction. And seeing, the cops either as we're gonna go through their complicity with the movement there, or the National Guard not coming in, apparently because the Trump administration told them in advance not to, that Trump gets to disarm the National Guard against the anti-democratic forces he told to attack the Capitol building.
Yeah,
it's just insanity. It's insanity, but not insanity that anyone gets to be 100% surprised by.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, to me, I was so pessimistic about how the general election would go down. I'm talking specifically about election day. I was expecting what we're experiencing today to happen on election day. And when it didn't, I was like, oh, maybe I should have a little more faith in our system of government. Maybe it's strong enough to withstand these coup attempts by Trump and his goons. But unfortunately, that put me in a place of, I wasn't completely calm. I mean, I assumed that something would happen today, but not to this extent. And I think part of the problem, John, is that You have, I'm just going to say it, you have even people on the left who minimize a lot of what Trump does. And there's a lot of like, oh no, but yeah, Trump is bad. Trump is bad, don't get me wrong. But the only reason why he's bad is because he says the quiet parts out loud. He's really not different from other lawmakers. No, he's different from other lawmakers. He's absolutely different from other lawmakers. And, every once in a while, I'll fall victim to that false narrative, equivocating, and it's wrong. Prior to Donald Trump, I never worried about something like this happening. I never worried about thousands of, right-wing extremists breaking into the Capitol building and threatening people's lives. And I also want to draw attention to Senator Jeff Merkley's tweet. He tweeted a photo of the Electoral College ballots, because remember, that's what this is really about. They want to overthrow our government because they don't like the results of the election. And so he writes, Electoral College ballots rescued from the Senate floor. If our capable floor staff hadn't grabbed them, they would have been burned by the mob. And you have Trump's insane lunatic lawyers like Lynn Wood advocating for stuff like that. And guess what? Words matter, especially when you're constantly, repeatedly, incessantly encouraging people to carry out acts of violence, constantly. Yep. And then as soon as you get a little backlash, it's like, I'm just kidding. No, you're not kidding. Well, they know exactly what they're doing. This is a stochastic terrorism.
Exactly. They have a couple of defense mechanisms. One is, no, I was just kidding. I didn't actually mean that. Or I'm going to let you do it, and then I'm going to say be peaceful after you've done it. So you can't get mad at me, even though the woman died. And then the other defense mechanism is, it wasn't us. Don't believe your lying eyes, and all the right wingers who are gleefully tweeting out that they're participating in this. It wasn't them. It was actually the left. And this is how fast it moves now. Lynn Wood, who's in the running for possibly the craziest person in the country, who has been telling people to do this, like 2 hours ago said it was Antifa. On his radio show, Sean Hannity just said it's groups like Antifa. It's not. It's not Trump fans. It's not MAGA people. It's a few leftists, I guess, who brought their Confederate flags, and they're the ones doing this. So you can feed all of this insanity and paranoia and hatred and xenophobia, get people all riled up. And when they do the thing you've been begging them to do, it wasn't actually them, it was the other side. The other side faked it.
We got to take a break, but we have so much more to get to. So thank you for everyone who's watching. I'm gonna, get to how the police have responded. What's likely to happen tonight. How basically the Senate was handling the certification of the election results today. I think it's really important to discuss that as well. So stick around. We'll be right back with that and more.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Hey everyone, welcome to our social break. So one thing that I wanted to bring up is a comment that I saw in the chat, but it moved, so I don't know who left it. But it was a point that I wanted to clarify. So when I say stochastic terrorism, I'm specifically talking about the right-wing messaging, and what's happening right now is. This is intentional. Like they certainly planned this. There are reports coming out now that there was a lot of coordinating happening on social media. I'm gonna guess on places like Parler maybe. And so I'm gonna go ahead and also read some member comments as well. You can become a member by going to tyt.com/join. Mr. Limberg writes in and says, there have been exactly 2 times in US history that the US Capitol has been breached. This is correct, by the way. The British during the War of 1812 and today. Today is also the singular time that the Confederate flag has been flown in the Capitol, and they haven't even existed for 160 years. Pathetic. But we're gonna get to Biden's statement later. They have no excuse, guys. Biden has no excuse. Democrats have no excuse. There needs to be consequences for members of the Trump administration and the Trump campaign who have encouraged this. There needs to be an investigation into how this was coordinated. There needs to be consequences, okay? If I hear another word about how we need to heal and push for bipartisanship right now, I'm gonna lose my mind, okay? The majority of Republican voters, literally hundreds of Republican lawmakers have signed on to this. They like this, they agree with this. You listen to interviews with these maniacs, and what do they tell reporters? That they feel proud of what they're doing today, that they feel patriotic. Sorry, I'm supposed to read your comments and I'm getting all heated. So thank you for that comment.
Don't worry.
I'm just so, yeah. Perpendicular Time says, as Nomiki Konst pointed out, this doesn't happen organically. The White House earlier said they're in touch with people involved, which seems to imply that they know those leading the mob. Riot doesn't seem accurate for the insurrectionists. Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems far more coordinated than
it was an assault of specific places. It wasn't just random milling about or chaos. It was an organized assault against specific buildings that had been planned weeks or months beforehand.
We got to get back. So let's get back to the show. We have so much more to share with you guys. Thank you for being here with us and watching and going through this with us together. We love you. So we'll get right back to the show. Welcome back to TYT. A lot of chaos in the Capitol today. And of course, we're gonna talk about all the different news articles that have, angles that have come out as a result of that. Starting with what I think people should be paying more attention to, the violence that has already claimed the life of one person in the Capitol building. So let's get to that. A woman was shot inside the Capitol building today after thousands of Trump supporters and people who don't believe in our democratic process, absolute domestic terrorists, rushed into the Capitol building, broke into the Capitol building, and chaos ensued. The police were outnumbered and were not able to control the crowd. And so that ended in a situation, well, it resulted in a situation with a woman getting shot. Now, here's what we know so far, but details are still developing. So we'll update you guys on the story as we get more details. But for now, what we know is that the woman has died. She was previously in critical condition. She was either struck in her chest or her neck. There are conflicting news reports on that. But she appears to be a pro-Trump, person. So she was there to be part of this group of, people who are terrorizing the Capitol right now. So I get that she got shot. I get that she's the victim in this story, but she had no business being inside the Capitol building where the shooting took place. It's also unclear at the moment who shot her. There are some reports indicating that she was shot by authorities, but again, we don't know those details for sure, and I want to make sure that I'm clear with you guys, and I'm not spreading any type of misinformation. Once it's confirmed that it was a police official, I will let you know, but that is what people are reporting as of now. So again, she was among the people who had been protesting in support of Trump, and that's according to Democratic Representative Henry Cuellar of Texas. He said that during a CNN interview. Also, I think it's worth seeing what that scene was like. So it's a little graphic. You're not going to see any bloodshed, but you are going to see, what, like the chaos and the absolute violence that took place. Let's watch the video. So there you have it. She's now dead.
Yeah, I don't know exactly who was yelling out. The fact that they were yelling that it was an active shooter sounds more like it was some random element. It's entirely possible that it could be cops. Certainly, we know from our coverage that cops shoot a lot of people, but we haven't seen much evidence of police using anything even approaching deadly force. They seem to be in basically everything that we can see going out of their way to engage with the protesters, which doesn't mean that it's impossible that one of them fired a shot. It just isn't consistent with what we've seen so far. Anyway, I guess there's no benefit to speculation at this point. At some point, we'll find out. But yeah, it didn't need to happen.
The District of Columbia Fire and Emergency Medical Services Department confirmed the shooting, saying they transported the patient with critical life-threatening injuries from the Capitol and that CPR was performed. Again, I want to reiterate that she did not survive. She died from a critical gunshot wound. One of the pro-Trump rioters who identified himself as Thomas Marani, and I'm glad he identified himself. I think it's important that people who are part of this pay the consequences for treason. What they're doing is trying to throw out the democratically elected president-elect. That's what they're trying to do here. That's what this is about. But anyway, Thomas Marani from New Jersey, the spelling of his last name was not clear. He said his name in a video, said that he had witnessed the shooting. It occurred after the woman rushed to the windows and wouldn't follow police officers' commands to get out of the way, he said. He also told BuzzFeed News, quote, she didn't heed the call, and as we kind of raced up to grab people and pull them back, they shot her in the neck, and she fell back on me. And then she started moving weird, and blood was coming out of her mouth and neck and nose. God, I don't know if she's alive or dead anymore. And again, she's dead. She's dead. And things are getting more unruly as the night, brings darkness, of course. Like we've seen that happen with people who decided to co-opt peaceful protests during the summer. Now, those were actual legitimate protests. This is not a legitimate protest. And as it gets darker, police are concerned about things getting even more violent and, possibly more gunshots firing, because these are people who are armed. They showed up armed, and people are suffering the consequences of that now.
Exactly. Yeah. And look, I mean, we know and everybody's acknowledged they had every bit of warning necessary for what was going to come. The fact that there weren't enough people there to stop it, it implies something. I don't know exactly what. That they were actively disarmed by the administration, that they were complicit with the movement. I have no idea if it's one or all of them or something else that we don't yet know. But we do know that everybody knew this was happening. Like there's never been a better publicized attempt to seize power and advance in a country ever. The president himself was calling for it. Right-wing media was all about it. All alternative right-wing media was trumpeting it. The president spoke at it this morning. This was not some sort of flash mob that descended on the Capitol. They knew that this was coming and they didn't stop it. And so look, now they've had a full day. So in theory, I'm assuming that there's quite a bit of force within 10 or 20 or 50 miles of the Capitol building that they could have gotten there in this time. It's just going to be further evidence. If this same sort of thing happens, if other buildings are breached, is going to be further evidence that they weren't prepared and that we're open to speculate about why exactly that was, considering that everybody watching this knew full well what was going to happen.
Yeah, they're just absolutely unprepared. The fact that they didn't have enough preparation ahead of time to deal with this really tells you something. To watch the video from inside the Capitol building as they're breaking into the Capitol building is beyond infuriating, especially when you consider the fact that there were more than enough law enforcement officials, either federal law enforcement officials or local law enforcement officials there in the summer to rain terror on protesters and journalists who were both covering and also raising awareness about the reality of police brutality in this country. That was met with overwhelming force. And by the way, one other thing I want to mention, this is important. Do not allow any political party, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, argue that this is a perfect example of how we need to increase the police state, that we need to provide additional funding for policing and surveillance in this country, because I guarantee you they will make that point. The problem isn't that we don't have enough police to handle a situation like this. We do. We spend an insane amount of money on law enforcement, on the military. What we're experiencing today at the Capitol isn't a lack of resources in policing or surveillance. What we're experiencing is a lack of preparedness. And really the real question is why? I think that needs to be investigated. Yeah. Why are they so ill prepared to deal with something that the Trump supporters and Trump himself has been encouraging for weeks?
Exactly.
Month and a half.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. In long before the election, we were having conversations about what would happen if he were to lose. Would he actually step down? Would there be a peaceful transfer of power? Remember all those conversations that people were saying we were wasting our time on and everything? Well, this is what it looks like when there's not one. And all the people, including people on the right, just saying, well, like, just let him have his temper tantrum. What could the harm possibly be? He'll eventually move on and concede. Now we have this. By the way, just super quick update. There were at least 3 tweets that Trump had sent out that were justifying the violence. Twitter has actually taken those down, which is, at least to my knowledge, the first time they've ever actually removed his content. In the past, they've limited the sharing or put a little tag with extra information. They've actually taken down those tweets.
Well, wow, bold moves by Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. So it's probably in time. You can wait until now.
It's just beyond frustrating. Let's move on to our next story. Because aside from a woman getting shot and dying as a result of this, we have other pretty terrifying elements to this story, including bombs. So let's get to it. Authorities have discovered explosive devices at both the DNC and the RNC buildings. At first, it was confirmed that there was a pipe bomb near the RNC building, and then the DNC building was evacuated after there were worries of a suspicious package. Well, later it was confirmed that the DNC was in fact also targeted with pipe bombs. Now, luckily, they were detonated safely and no one was hurt. But had authorities authorities failed to find those pipe bombs, of course, there would be people injured in the best case scenario and people who die as a result in the worst case scenario. But this is terrorism. This is terrorism. This is not anarchy. This is not any other weird euphemism that the media might come up with to whitewash what's happening right now. This is sedition. This is an attempt to overthrow our government. This is treason. This is terrorism. You don't place pipe bombs near a building unless you're hoping that people get hurt, that people die. That is why you place pipe bombs near any type of building. And in this case, government buildings, specifically because you don't like the outcome of the election. You don't believe in democracy. These Trump supporters don't believe in our democratic process. They don't believe in our Constitution. And I have no interest in healing with them. Okay, I want to stop using that kind.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Of language when it comes to the Republican Party. What we're seeing right now in the Capitol is a clear representation of what the Republican Party believes in this country. It has been taken over by fascistic individuals who believe in authoritarianism, who do not believe in democracy, and we need to call it what it is and stop walking on eggshells because we're afraid to offend Trump supporters. I don't care about offending anyone, Trump supporters, Democrats, who cares? What's right is right, and what's happening right now in the nation's capital is beyond shameful and incredibly embarrassing, especially for a country, by the way, that loves invading other countries because they want to spread democracy, right? That's the BS reasoning that we hear from our government all the time. And so look at what we've allowed to happen in the nation's capital today. This is insane. This was encouraged by members of Congress and by Donald Trump and his administration.
Yeah, and there's been, a little bit of condemnation, but there's plenty of powerful people on the right that are perfectly fine with this. They're going to find some sort of excuse. They're going to pivot to some other topic. They're going to excuse it, as Trump himself was. And so, like, an important part of long-term engagement with politics is understanding who people are, who movements are. And we criticize constantly the Democrats for not seeming to get it, to being stuck in the aughts or in the 90s or in the 80s or even earlier and not getting who these people are. But not just the politicians, also their base. This is not a thing where the Republican Party has managed to convince their base, or kind of hide the fact that they're anti-democratic and that they're suppressing the vote and gerrymandering and all that stuff, and they can't seem to win the popular vote. They haven't gone nearly far enough for their base. Their base is done with this entire thing. They have no interest. They potentially accurately see that the sort of politics they want cannot get majority support. So they know that they cannot actually gain enough power to put their agenda into effect. And so they've done the math on that and they've realized democracy doesn't work, okay? They lasted as long as they can with the different structural manipulations and the way the system is inherently biased in a way that benefits them, and they're done with it. And Trump, he's the terrible part of it right now that we're dealing with. He's hopefully going to be gone soon. But lurking in the wings, you have people like Josh Hawley and Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz that are desperately trying to figure out right now, what do I have to say and do to get the people that stormed the Capitol today to vote for me in 4 years? How do I get the fascists to think I'm the one that's gonna do it for them? because they're going to face incredible competition for that. What are they going to say? What are they going to do to convince that massive million-strong mob that they're the one that'll finally do what Donald Trump apparently couldn't quite finish?
It's just amazing how powerful propaganda is in this country, where you can have someone like Donald Trump, who has been such a complete failure in every regard. I mean, economically, for the vast majority of Americans, he's been a failure. He's been great for the stock market, but obviously that's not representative of the real economic situation for most Americans. He's been a disaster when it comes to the pandemic. I can't say it enough. Like the fact that they can't accept that Trump was such an awful president that he lost hundreds of thousands of people, gone, dead. He has been a complete failure, and they're like, no, but he's the one who actually genuinely got reelected. Like he's the one who won. Mm-hmm. No. People despise Trump because he's failed them, and he's failed his own base as well, to your point, John. And this strategy, the propagandizing to the point where you can successfully implement these divide and conquer tactics. I mean, to the point where Americans are willing to dismantle our system of government, totally throw out our democratic process. It's just like infuriating, but also pretty depressing. Democracy is such a fragile thing, and we're experiencing the lengths to which some people in this country are willing to go just to throw out our democracy in favor of authoritarianism. We have to take a break, but we have a lot more to get to when we return, including how the police responded in some cases to these domestic terrorists taking selfies and such. And later in the show, we'll also talk about Donald Trump's response to all of this. Come right back. Welcome to our social break. I'm gonna read as many comments as I can, since during the last break, I kind of failed at doing that. So let's start with member comments. And thank you for watching live today, guys. I really appreciate it. Where's Biden hiding says, now that it's happening in their house, maybe lawmakers will finally start taking right-wing terrorism seriously. The question is, will the media, who has been complicit in all of this, finally stop calling it even? The fact that NPR is asking if it's appropriate to call them terrorists is a good sign. I agree with you on that point regarding NPR. I will say, I've been watching CNN live as they've been covering this, and I think they've done a good job in calling this what it is. I
agree.
I'm sure I disagree with Jake Tapper on a lot of things, but he's so done with the Trump administration. Like,
yeah, no, I was actually surprised. I was listening to it today, and not only do we disagree, but he probably personally hates our guts because we work for TYT. But anyway, no, the way he was talking about this stuff at the very least, I mostly agreed with it. Yeah.
And aggressively. Like he's been pretty aggressive against the Trump administration. So credit where credit is due. Doesn't mean that I agree with coverage on other topics, but this coverage, I think he's done a decent job. Lauren Ingram writes in and says, Jesus saves, but let me violently riot and break into the Capitol. Jesus would spit in their face. Tank and Beans writes in and says, if Biden still wants to look forward, not back in response to this, and refuses to authorize proceedings to hold Trump and his sycophants to account, it's only gonna get worse. I absolutely agree. We're gonna talk about that in more detail later in the show as well. Gabby Marita writes in and says, Fox News will act like there's no possible way to discern these terrorists' political allegiance. despite them literally waving giant Trump flags. I know, it's like a sea of red MAGA hats. And Fox News, as we speak, is trying to pass this off as Antifa violence. Just absolute disgusting behavior. All right, well, we have a minute left, so I'm gonna read some super chats. That Bernie bro writes in and says, I'm very alarmed by what's going on in the Capitol. I keep seeing the same screenshots for what looked like a gun fight and a traitor sitting in a big chair where Congress meets. You're right. We showed you that video and gave you details on that. This is what's going on. This is, apparently police officials have been able to secure the Capitol. They weren't able to do that before, but that's some of the latest reporting on it. All right, and then Diane Glassner writes in and says, time for the 25th. I agree, something that Cenk has been advocating for a long time. Kestrel 404 says we need to ban the ACTIFA, I don't know what that is, so I'll look into that. Actual incompetent fascists, got it. We got to get back to the show. Thank you guys, we'll see you in just a minute. Everyone, welcome back to TYT. There's a comment in our chat that says, just like I disagree with TYT, today we united against fascism. I hear you. I hope everyone who's watching this show understands the importance of protecting our system of government. With all its flaws, the last thing I would want to do is go backward and live in an authoritarian country where a democratically elected leader isn't able to take office because thousands of insane people decide to carry out acts of violence to overthrow our system of government. But with that said, I think it's also worth focusing a little on Donald Trump's response and some of what he did prior to this violence breaking out in the Capitol by these domestic terrorists. So, as thousands of Trump supporters violently stormed the Capitol building, which resulted in one woman getting shot and dying, Donald Trump didn't really say much. He was pretty hush-hush until he decided to put out a few tweets that, honestly, I would almost prefer that he doesn't release a statement at all, because he never says anything that's productive. He only encourages more violence, and it's absolutely horrendous considering some of the video footage that we've seen. But I want to go to his video first, and then I'll go to some of the tweets he put out prior to this video statement.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election. And everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election. But we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
Donald Trump should be arrested. And I'm not kidding. I'm not just exaggerating. He should be arrested immediately. That's why we showed you that video, because it's evidence for what he is encouraging. This is sedition. He should be arrested immediately. No questions asked. No questions asked. He encouraged this, John. He encouraged this before it happened, right before it happened. He gave a speech today, earlier in the day. And I think it's important to focus on this snippet because this is what he encouraged. He wanted this. This is not a mistake. Yep. He should be arrested. Let's go to the next video real quick.
We fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. We're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride, boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you and God bless America. Thank you all for being here. This is incredible. Thank you very much.
He literally said it. John, take it away.
Yeah, so he wants to put pressure on the weak Republicans. This is the only one I've seen, but Kathy McMorris Rodgers says that she's no longer going to object to the Electoral College results. She's not merciful. She was only going to do it before. Now she's not going to.
Okay.
Look, it's better. But
she needs to be tossed out of Congress. Gone. 100%. She played a role in this for political reasons. Disgusting. Go ahead. Sorry.
Exactly. Everything that Trump said there, I think, is an incitement to violence. He constantly talks about fighting like hell. His lead insane lawyer said that we need trial by combat, and then they go and they get someone killed, and they break things, and they burn things. But if it wasn't for the stuff after, I almost might think, well, that's just Trump being as generally awful as he always is. But that video that we showed of him outside of the White House is among the more individually dangerous things that we've ever seen the president say on tape. A woman had already been shot. They had already broken into the halls of Congress. They stood where the speaker stands. They get to her office. They're breaking things. They're assaulting cops. They've brought bombs, and he says, "I love you. You're very special." Like if the towers came down and George W. Bush said, "Now everyone out there, everyone calm down," to the people who were in the planes before they crashed in there, "I love you. You're all very special, you terrorists." Representative Ilhan Omar and Cori Bush are pushing for him to be removed from office immediately. I don't know that it's possible. It should 100% happen. None of the mechanisms of government work though. We have the 25th Amendment for this. What could possibly happen in the future that would be a better call for it to be employed than this? And related to this, the DC is supposedly secure now because the National Guard finally did go in. That does not mean that Trump is taking it more seriously, because further reporting showed it wasn't Trump that ordered it, Pence ordered it. For all we know, Trump was still fine with not moving in there. Like he can't, we are just still hoping, even at this point, most people that, well, it's only 14 more days. What could possibly happen? Well, maybe more women will get shot. Maybe more people will die. Maybe more buildings will be destroyed if we don't get rid of him. Get him out of there. He ain't doing the job anyway. Seriously, and there are potentially lives on the line, more lives on the line than he's already claimed.
Yeah, I'm really worried about what will happen tonight. So far, authorities have said that they managed to take control of the situation. As I mentioned earlier, they didn't have enough manpower ahead of time. They didn't plan ahead of time. But who knows what is likely to break out later tonight. Anna, prior to today. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question? So let's say that you were one of these crazy Proud Boys or the militias or whatever that have been planning to do this. So you go in during the day and you're shocked to find out, oh wait, like I've heard that the US government's like super tough or whatever, but no, we just got into the buildings and nothing happened. We were fine, barely any resistance against us. They arrested 13 people, I read. So if you go to do this, you're probably gonna be fine. They're not gonna shoot you really. And you've got almost no chance whatsoever of getting arrested. So Anna, going into tonight, would you be more or less likely to do something insane than you were earlier today?
I mean, obviously more likely.
They have provided incentives for further escalation on the side of the terrorists.
Yeah. They know what they're doing, right? I'm so tired of what I think people perceive as plausible deniability. No, there is no plausible deniability. They know what they're doing. Donald Trump knows what he's egging on. He knows what he's encouraging. He was enabled by Republican lawmakers, literally hundreds of them, who knew that Joe Biden was the president-elect, that he won the election fair and square, that there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. But they decided to write their names on these efforts to overturn the election results, to challenge the Electoral College votes. Privately, they'll admit what the reality of the situation is. But publicly, no, they're gonna go along with this narrative, knowing that it undermines our democracy because it earns them political brownie points with Trump's base. That's what Senator Josh Hawley did. They know that they can fundraise off of it, which is what multiple GOP lawmakers did. Of course, that's something that Donald Trump has been doing. He's been fundraising off of this effort for his alleged court battles, which, by the way, he's lost 60 of them because they have no evidence of widespread voter fraud. They don't care. They don't care that there's no evidence. They don't care what the reality of the situation is. I think that most Republicans are fully aware that Biden was legitimately elected in the general election. They just don't like our system of government. They don't like the results, and they want to go ahead and undo what happened on election day, what the reality is. Again, Joe Biden won. Sorry. And it's because Trump has been a failure. Acknowledge that. How many of these Trump supporters have family members who died from coronavirus? How many?
Oh, it's Anna. You live in a fact and reality-based world, but this is a worldview. This is a movement staffed with all of these media avatars that are designed to lure people in with the siren song of you never have to hold an inconvenient fact in your head, literally ever. Not about politicians, certainly. No matter how many times they lose, no, it was actually stolen from them. They didn't lose anything. They're saying the exact same things about the Senate races yesterday. Coronavirus, man, it really does seem like a failure of government. No, it's fake. It's totally made up. It was made up by whoever, George Soros, Bill Gates, whatever. It doesn't actually exist. They never have to suffer cognitive dissonance. Everything is exactly the way they want. Even events like this, who right-wingers around the country have been hoping something like this would happen. They go very smoothly from weeks of, God, I hope something happens. God, I hope it happens, to it was the other side. The left did it. It was Antifa. Like, they never have to hold a single inconvenient thought. And that's how they go through their world. Like, there are bubbles. Everybody's in bubbles. We're in bubbles. But theirs is made out of vibranium. Nothing gets through. Everything is exactly the way it needs to be for their incredibly shallow worldview. Their ego is just so raw, it couldn't take anything, and they've figured out a way to sustain that.
I know. I would love for them to send me the election night meltdown videos from 2016. I would love.
Yeah, we melted down, Anna. You know why? We melted down because when a Republican
because we were worried about this kind of
didn't
stuff.
Like it. Yeah, we didn't like that Trump won, so we melted down, spending months losing your mind, believing everyone who opposes you is a satanic pedophile, and then literally storming the halls of Congress. That's not a meltdown. That's just being a patriot, I guess.
Well, an update just now. Congress convenes to confirm Joe Biden's Electoral College victory as Republicans object. It's amazing. So they're
objecting. No, I can. It's horrible, but.
So we'll give you more details on holding Republicans accountable when we come back from the break. There's a lot more to get to. So thanks for sticking around. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.